The smell hit him first. A sharp, unnatural sting of sulfur in the cold night air. The forest had gone completely still. Then, a sound. The heavy crunch of something massive moving through the brush nearby. Branches snapping. It emerged from the darkness by the creek. A huge creature, covered in dirty, matted white fur. It knelt to drink, and in that moment, his mind just stopped. It wasn't using paws. They were hands, impossibly large, yet distinctly human. That sight, the sight of those hands, was the detail that broke the world. But who was this man who saw the impossible in the deep dark of Appalachia? And what brought him alone to the one place in the county that everyone else had learned to fear? To understand how a man could find himself face to face with the impossible, we have to go back. Back to the beginning of that night in late 1994. The man's name was Ed Rollins, a Navy veteran, an experienced outdoorsman, and above all, a pragmatist. Growing up in West Virginia, his childhood was filled with the whispers of local legends. Stories of winged monsters like the Mothman that kept other kids awake at night. For Ed, they were just stories. And he had decided it was time to prove it. His mission was one of pure, simple rationalism. He would go to the most feared place in all of Mason County, the sprawling, derelict grounds of the World War II munitions site known only as the TNT area. He would spend the night there, alone. And when the sun rose, he would walk out having found nothing, proving to himself and anyone who would listen that the monsters were just shadows in the mind. The TNT area was already a place of real, tangible dread. It was a maze of crumbling concrete bunkers, their thick walls surrendering to webs of overgrown vines. Rusted signs still stood guard, warning of contamination on land that industry had used and then abandoned. There was an eerie, heavy silence here, the kind that settles over a place that has been emptied of people, but not of its history. For Ed, this was perfect. The fear of this place wasn't supernatural. It was logical. It was a graveyard of industry, not a home for monsters. He moved with a quiet competence, his steps sure over the broken ground. He found a secluded spot, watched the last light of day fade behind the skeletal silhouettes of the trees, and felt a sense of calm purpose. He was not here for a thrill. He was here to prove a point. He settled in for what he was sure would be a long, cold, and entirely uneventful night. He was certain he was alone, but the deep, weighted silence of the TNT area was not empty, and from the darkest corners of the decaying woods, something was already aware of him. Something was watching. The silence he had banked on lasted for hours. The cold of the West Virginia night seeped into the ground, a deep, patient cold that promised frost by dawn. Then, through the still air, a new element arrived. A scent. It was sharp, utterly out of place, a terrible, pungent odor, like rotten eggs or sulfur. Ed's first thought was practical, grounded. Chemical leakage. This entire area was a poisoned wound on the landscape. An industrial smell was the most logical thing in the world. Then a sound cut through the chemical tang, heavy brush breaking. This wasn't the light snap of a deer or the rustle of a small animal. This was a deep, resonant crunch, a sound with weight behind it. Something heavy was out there, something clumsy, or something that simply didn't care about the noise it was making. His military training screamed at him to stay put, to stay hidden. But a different part of him, the part that came here to find an answer, was now in control. His curiosity for a fatal second overcame his caution. He moved toward the sound, keeping low and silent. Through a break in the trees, by the pale, cold light of the moon, he saw it. It was down by the creek, crouched low to the ground. And it was huge, larger than any black bear he'd ever seen, and covered in thick, matted, dirty white fur that seemed to glow unnaturally in the moonlight. His mind, the calm, orderly mind of Ed Rollins, began to race, desperately trying to file what his eyes were seeing. A bear? No, the fur is wrong. An albino bear? The size is right, but the way it moves, it's wrong. An escapee from a zoo? A sick animal? Every logical box he tried to put it in, it broke out of. The creature then did something that stopped his heart cold. It knelt by the water, and it raised a forelimb to its head. And in that moment, Ed saw it. It wasn't a paw. It was a hand. A giant 5-fingered hand with a thumb. At that same instant, the moonlight caught the long, curved horns on its head, like a goat. The rational part of his brain, the part that had brought him here to debunk myths, simply stopped. It was like a circuit breaker had flipped. The logic, the analysis, the disbelief, it all went dark. All that was left was a single, pure, primal signal, firing over and over. Impossible. 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 This is the moment most people would scream or run, but a different kind of training, buried deep, took over. The part of the Marine that knows panic is a death sentence. He felt a terror so profound, it was almost a physical presence. A cold weight in his chest, but his body acted with a discipline he didn't know he still possessed. He didn't turn. He didn't make a sound. He just started moving backward. Slowly, deliberately. One step, then another. Placing his feet perfectly, avoiding every dry leaf, every twig. The thought of triggering a chase was a bright, flashing light in his mind. Don't run. Don't make it a chase. Only when the tree line was a solid wall between him and the creek, only when he hit the gravel of the access road, did he allow himself to turn and run. He didn't stop until the cold metal of his car door was under his hand, and the engine was roaring to life. He drove without headlights for the first mile, his heart hammering against his ribs. The image of the hand, that 5-fingered, impossibly human hand, was burned onto the inside of his eyelids. The terror was still there, a live thing in the passenger seat beside him. But as the miles passed and the adrenaline began its slow, cold retreat, a new feeling began to surface. It wasn't relief. It was a question. A quiet, dreadful, and life-altering question that pushed the terror aside. If that was out there, was he the first to see it, or just the first one to get away? That question, was he the first? It wasn't just a thought. For Ed Rollins, the Marine, it became a mission. The terror was still there, a cold weight in his chest, but the need to know was stronger. It was the only way to reimpose order on a world that had just shown him its rules didn't apply. He started where the encounter happened, near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The research began not in a lab, but in the hushed halls of the local library. The air there smelled of aging paper and binding glue. He spent days hunched over a microfiche reader, the rhythmic click and whir of the machine, a stark contrast to the frantic silence of the forest. His eyes burned from staring at grainy, backlit newspaper columns, scrolling through decades of local history, farm reports, and police blotters. He wasn't looking for monsters. He was looking for a pattern, a mention of a strange animal, anything. And then he found it. A brief article from 1954. A family reported a large, foul-smelling, white thing lurking at the edge of their property. It was vague, easily dismissed, but it was a start. He wasn't the only one. The feeling wasn't relief. It was a cold dread. This thing had a history here. He kept digging further back in time, and that's when he uncovered the case that would change everything. The reel clicked forward to the year 1929. The story of a Croatian-American coal miner named Frank Kosal. Frank had just finished a brutal shift underground. He was walking home, exhausted, the coal dust still clinging to his clothes and skin. The attack came without warning. Something immense and powerful slammed into him from the side, throwing him to the ground. He remembered a wall of thick, white fur and a suffocating stench. He fought back with the desperation of a man who believed he was about to die, his fists and boots meeting something that felt solid, muscular, and alive. He was found later by other miners, huddled on the side of the road, incoherent with terror, babbling about a white beast that had tried to tear him apart. They helped him back to the mining camp, expecting to find him battered and bleeding. But when they cleaned him up, there was nothing. Not a single scratch. Not a bruise. Not a tear in his clothing. It was as if the violent struggle he so clearly remembered had never happened. This was the detail that stopped Ed cold. A violent, physical encounter that leaves no physical marks. How can something be present enough to attack you, yet absent enough to leave no trace? It proved the mountains could manifest physical force out of something that wasn't entirely there. Ed realized he hadn't just stumbled upon a creature. He'd stumbled upon a paradox, and he learned that even back then, in the winter of 1994, other sightings had been quietly reported. He was never alone. Over time, through whispers and fragmented stories passed down through generations, the thing earned a name. A name that tried to capture its strange, impossible nature. The community called it the Sheepsquatch. But the Sheepsquatch, with its impossible blend of physical force and ethereal presence, wasn't the end of the story. It was just Exhibit A. It was the first piece of evidence in a much larger, stranger case file belonging to the Appalachian Mountains themselves. And to understand the full picture, you have to look at Exhibit B, something that wasn't hiding in the forest, but was happening in plain sight. In the sky above Appalachia holds its own secrets, and it suggests that the true anomaly isn't a creature that stalks the woods, but the ground on which those woods grow. This forces us to confront the central thesis of this entire case file. What if the source of these phenomena isn't something in the mountains, but is the mountains themselves? An ancient, sprawling system that, for reasons we cannot explain, appears to generate these breaks in reality. The Sheepsquatch, with its impossible blend of physical force and an ethereal signature, was the first data point. A paradox of flesh and energy. Now, we turn to the second. A mystery just as old and just as baffling, playing out not in the deep woods, but in the night sky over North Carolina. The brown mountain lights, pale, silent orbs that rise from the valley floor. They hover, drift, and then vanish. For generations they were a ghost story, a piece of local folklore. Until in 1922, the U.S. Geological Survey arrived to close the book on the legend. They conducted their study, and they returned with a definitive, scientific explanation that was published, accepted, and taught. An official story. And it was a story one man, a geologist named L.C. Eplin, believed completely, until the night the mountains showed him the truth. For some encounters, there is no official story, no government file, no tidy report. But for others, the official story is where the problem begins. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, a mystery has persisted for over a century. They are the brown mountain lights. Silent orbs of amber and white that rise from the deep valleys, hover with intent, and then vanish without a sound. For decades, there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. First proposed by the U.S. Geological Survey in 1913, the conclusion was simple. The lights were merely the headlamps of southern railway trains. From a specific overlook, a place like Wiseman's View, where sight lines stretch for miles across the Catawba Valley, the unique atmospheric conditions could bend and distort distant lights, transforming them into something that felt otherworldly. It was a tidy explanation, a collision of topography and technology that satisfied the official record. And for most, it was enough. The mystery was solved. This was the world of C.W. Smith in the mid-1980s, a federal law enforcement officer for the U.S. Forest Service on patrol in the vast Pisgah National Forest. Smith was a professional. He dealt in facts, in evidence. To him, the stories of the lights were a local tourist trap, a harmless fiction for visitors. His job was to find poachers, to stop illegal campers. He was there to enforce human laws, not to entertain folklore. Tonight, on patrol at Wiseman's View, the air is still. The forest is quiet. His training directs his eyes toward the predictable actions of men, scanning the ridgeline for the flicker of an illegal campfire. His focus is on the tangible world. But the event, when it comes, will not be from the horizon. It will come from the deep, silent blackness of the gorge directly below. For a man with 25 years of service in the U.S. Forest Service, the world had rules. C.W. Smith was a law enforcement officer in the Pisgah National Forest. He knew its sounds, its seasons, its secrets. Or so he thought. One night, during a quiet patrol, he drove up to Wiseman's View, a familiar overlook staring into the deep darkness of the Linville Gorge. And that's when he saw it. Down in the gorge, a light. It wasn't a flashlight. It was a glowing, pulsing orb about the size of a basketball. A perfect, fiery red. His mind immediately went to work, filtering the impossible through the lens of the possible. A campfire, maybe. He raised his binoculars, his movements practiced and steady. But there was no smoke, no flicker of wood, just this clean, contained ball of fire. Okay, a helicopter then. But there was no sound. Nothing. The silence of the gorge was absolute, a heavy blanket only disturbed by his own breathing. He kept the binoculars pressed to his eyes, his brain refusing the data his senses were providing. He watched as the light began to move. It didn't drift. It shot straight up, a silent, vertical ascent that no known aircraft could perform. It stopped, hanging motionless in the air. Then it accelerated, instantly, across the expanse of the gorge. Still, not a sound. This wasn't a machine. He knew what machines looked and sounded like. This was something else. And then, the moment that broke him. As he watched, the single orb of light split, perfectly into two. Two identical, silent, glowing spheres, hovering for a moment before they smoothly, impossibly, merged back into one. In that moment, 25 years of experience became meaningless. Every rule he knew about physics, about fire, about flight. It all just dissolved into the cold night air. He felt a profound sense of helplessness. The official USGS report, the one that explained it all away as train lights, was a document he had trusted, a piece of paper that kept the world orderly. And his own eyes had just proven it completely, utterly wrong. But the most unsettling part wasn't just that the report was wrong. It's that the report may have been flawed from the very day it was written. What the forest officer C.W. Smith saw on that ridge wasn't just a personal story. It was a loose thread on a carefully woven official narrative. And when you pull on a thread like that, sometimes the entire fabric of a story can unravel. To understand how, we have to go back to 1913. This was the year the United States Geological Survey, the USGS, first sent an investigator to Brown Mountain. After a brief study, they released their conclusion. It was simple, logical, and definitive. The lights, they said, were merely the headlamps of locomotives moving through the distant Catawba Valley. The specific atmospheric conditions of the mountain simply refracted and distorted them, making them appear to float and dance. For many, the case was closed. The mystery had been solved by science. Then, 3 years later, in 1916, nature offered a rebuttal. That July, the region was struck by a catastrophe remembered today as the Great Flood. The Catawba River, swollen by back-to-back hurricanes, boiled over its banks and devoured the valley. It was an event of almost biblical power. The roar of the water was inescapable, carrying with it trees, homes, and the infrastructure of the modern world. Eyewitnesses described the sickening scream of twisting steel as entire sections of the railway were torn from the earth. Massive bridges buckled and were washed away like toys. For weeks, the valley was a ruin. All train traffic came to a dead stop. And in the heavy silence that followed, night after night, the lights on Brown Mountain returned. With the tracks mangled and silent, the mysterious orbs continued their dance. They appeared above a landscape of devastation, indifferent to the broken machines that were supposed to be their source. Stop. Let that sink in for a moment. Nature itself had run a perfect experiment. An act of God had washed away the official explanation. But this single event reveals an even deeper flaw in the record. Because if it wasn't trains in 1916, what were people seeing 50 years before? The first tracks were ever laid. The flood forced the government's hand. The USGS was compelled to conduct a second, more thorough investigation in 1922. This time, the report, known as USGS Circular 646, was far less confident. Its author, George R. Mansfield, admitted that while some lights could be attributed to cars or other lamps, he could not explain all of the phenomena. The official record was starting to crack, and when historians looked further back, it shattered completely. They found family records, diaries from the descendants of a man named Josiah Lafayette, Fate Wiseman. His notes documented seeing a single recurring light on the mountain around 1854. This was decades before the first locomotive ever steamed through the valley, decades before widespread electricity. The official story wasn't just incomplete. It was demonstrably, historically, and repeatedly wrong. The witness accounts from C.W. Smith all the way back to Fate Wiseman weren't anomalies. They were the truth. But in our modern world, stories and historical records, however compelling, are often not enough. They are ghosts in the archives, easily dismissed by skeptics as folklore or misinterpretation. To truly end the century-long debate, to force the world to see what the witnesses saw, someone needed to move beyond the history books. Someone needed to capture undeniable physical proof. They needed to take a photograph. So the old stories crumble. The official explanations, shown to be built on flawed ground, fall apart. When the past becomes this unreliable, when a century of folklore feels like a dead end, there's only one place left to turn. You turn to the machine. You turn to science. In 2012, Dr. Daniel Coaten, a professor of physics and astronomy at Appalachian State University, decided it was time to finally get a definitive answer. He wasn't a blind believer. In fact, he was a skeptic. He estimated that maybe 95%, even 99% of all sightings were simple misidentifications. Planes, campfires, satellites. But he was deeply curious about that remaining 1%, the signal in the noise. So his team began a project. The methodology was elegant, and it was designed to be irrefutable. They set up 2 automated scientific-grade camera stations at different locations, both aimed at Brown Mountain. The cameras would run 24/7, capturing everything. The goal was simple. If a light was real, a genuine anomaly happening inside the gorge, it would have to be captured by both cameras at the same time. This would allow for triangulation. It would provide a position in 3-dimensional space. It would be proof. It would be undeniable. And so the long wait began. For years, the cameras watched. The computers recorded. And the team found nothing. Day after day, week after week, they reviewed thousands of hours of footage. Frame after frame of the same empty darkness. A distant plane, its lights blinking rhythmically. the orange glow of a camper's fire far below. A satellite, tracing a silent, predictable arc across the sky. Every potential sighting was checked, analyzed, and dismissed. 99% of the lights were just noise. The doubt began to creep in, deeper than before. The project was becoming a monument to a myth, a multi-year, high-tech confirmation that there was nothing there at all. Pay very close attention, because this is the moment the project almost died. Years of work, thousands of hours of data, and the mystery was collapsing under the weight of its own emptiness. It seemed the lights were just a story, after all. A ghost that vanishes the moment you try to prove it's real. But buried in all that data, on a single frame from a single night, the machine had recorded something everyone else had missed. It happened on July 16, 2016, 4 years into the project. It was probably found on a Tuesday morning in a quiet office, an analyst scrolling through yet another night's time-lapse, the familiar landscape flashing by. Then, a sudden stop. A finger hitting the spacebar. The image freezes. On the screen, over the dark ridge of the mountain, is a bright, distinct orb of light. It wasn't there on the previous frame. The analyst zooms in. It's perfectly spherical. Not a plane, not a fire. A quick check of the timestamp. Then, the real test. They pull up the footage from the second camera. They sync the time codes, and there, at the exact same moment, from a completely different angle, there it is again. The same light, the same flash, the same quiet disappearance over the course of about 20 minutes. The silence in the room must have been absolute. That quiet, stunning realization. We got it. After more than 100 years of folklore, of debate, of official dismissals and scientific skepticism, they had it. Science had finally, undeniably, captured a brown mountain light. Analysis would later rule out every known possibility. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't ball lightning. It wasn't a technical glitch or a man-made flare. It was real. It was there. The witnesses for over a century had been telling the truth. The photograph answered the one question that had haunted this mountain for generations. Are the lights real? And the answer, now etched into scientific data, was a resounding yes. But in answering the question of if, it opened up a much deeper, much more unsettling mystery. What are they? The lights are real, a physical phenomenon confirmed. But this confirmation doesn't end the mystery. It begins the real inquiry. What are they? There are two powerful ways to frame what is happening on Brown Mountain. The first is rooted in the soul of the land itself. Cherokee legends, passed down for generations, speak of a great battle fought near the mountain long ago. In its aftermath, the grieving maidens of the tribe went out every night, searching for their lost husbands and sweethearts with spectral torches. According to the legend, they search still. Those distant hovering lights are their eternal vigil. The ancient legends give the lights a soul, but modern science is trying to find their heartbeat. And this is where the mystery deepens. The leading theory doesn't suggest a simple explanation. It suggests the mountain itself is alive. Here's the second framework. The theory centers on a geological process known as the piezoelectric effect. The rock deep inside Brown Mountain is rich in quartz and magnetite. When immense tectonic stress, the slow, grinding pressure of the earth, squeezes these crystalline layers, they can generate a powerful electrical charge. This charge builds until it finds a release, surging to the surface and ionizing the gases in the air. The result is a contained, hovering sphere of glowing plasma, a phenomenon much like ball lightning, created by the mountain itself. This theory doesn't solve the mystery, it deepens it. It suggests a living geology. a mountain that breathes electricity and generates light from its own internal pressures. And the connection may go even further. Dr. Caton's research also explored the correlation between sightings and spikes in geomagnetic activity, the KP index, which measures disturbances in Earth's magnetic field caused by the sun. It raised a staggering possibility. When he captured those lights, he wasn't just watching a local anomaly. He was watching the mountain interact with the solar system. The Brown Mountain lights, like the Sheepsquatch, are more than just a ghost story or a simple misidentification. They are evidence, signs of a place that is profoundly and actively mysterious, an environment that produces phenomena at the very edge of our understanding, a place that pulses in time with the cosmos itself. Perhaps the goal, then, is not to have all the answers. It is simply to find the right questions and to stand in awe of them. The world is filled with these quiet mysteries, hiding in plain sight. If these stories resonated with you, subscribe for more journeys into the unexplained.